To all teachers. Thank you. To all teachers, my name is Vida Brenda. And I think as you wait for more people to come in, I'll just give a few house rules. So you shall be expected to be on mute at all times. So in case you have a question, you can raise your hand or use the chat section to post it. By the end of the session, we shall have a Q&A. So we shall address all the questions that you have posted. And then also, as you join, because you're many and we can't know you, all of you, we can't have you introduce yourselves one by one. So maybe you can also just post your name and the school you're coming from and the county. We shall keep that records. Yeah, and then, so I'll also introduce myself and my team. With me, I have our CEO, Kikomo from Angaza Elimu. I also have our facilitator for today, Maxwell Kayesi. So maybe we can have Kiko introduce himself and then we have Maxwell. I don't know whether we have members of UNICEF on board, so you can also unmute yourself and yeah, just introduce yourself to the team. Thank you, Mr. Kiko.
Hi, thank you, Vida. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kiko Mua. I'm the CEO and founder of Angaza Elimu. I'm really excited to be here today, and I want to welcome you all to this training. So as part of us as Angaza Elimu, we're really excited to have you all on board and looking forward to a great engagement and ensuring that we're gonna create some impact and equip you with the right skills that we believe would be crucial to assist you in the classrooms and to impact the teaching and learning outcomes. Once again, welcome. And I'll hand over for Teacher Maxwell for a short introduction, and then we'll move forward. Hi, Teacher Maxwell.
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. Good evening, everyone, from wherever you're joining us from. My name is Maxwell Kayesi. I'm an educator teaching at high school in Kiambu, Kenya. And I'll be a facilitator today on this module on remote learning. Thank you so much. Hope we'll engage. Feel free, feel at home. If you have any queries, just put it in the chat section. We'll respond to them during the breaks. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Teacher Maxwell.
Yeah, thank you, Teacher Maxwell. Any UNICEF member on board? Evelyn?
Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me. My name is Evelyn Kavata. I work as an innovation analyst with UNICEF Kenya. Yes, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Evelyn. Yeah, I hope, Evelyn, sorry, any other member from your team? Okay.
Sorry, I think I'm the only one right now. Yes.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. So yeah, this training will take about 6 weeks. It shall be happening every Monday from this time, 3:30 to 5 p.m., about 1 hour, 30 minutes. So each week we cover a pillar, and today I'll hand over to our facilitator, Mr. Maxwell, to take us through what he has prepared for us. Welcome, Maxwell.
Yes, thank you so much, Veda. Thank you so much, Kiko, for the opportunity once again to engage with these great educators in our country. As you've heard, my name is Maxwell, and I'll be taking you through quite a number of modules for the 6 weeks that we will be together. And our training today will mainly anchor on the first module, that is on lesson planning. So we'll basically have about 6 or so modules every week. So if you may to take you through, if Kiko would mind giving me the sharing rights. So as I share my screen, probably just an overview of what this training will all be about. We'll be looking at lesson planning as our first module for today. Then in the subsequent weeks, we'll be able to look at content development. Then we'll get to go into the details of assessment development, collaboration in virtual classroom, student progress analytics, and we'll sum it up with communication and feedback. Why all this? These are the key pillars that will assist or will guide you on to how to conduct a virtual teaching and learning, because most of the educators in the country, when COVID happened, we didn't really anticipate on the total close down that will ensue after the government shut down all schools. And going forward, remote learning and virtual teaching is the new normal. We are not going back to the traditional way of doing things, because the situation is unpredictable. And so the better the teachers are prepared to take on this new frontier, the better. So that's why we're here, to assist you, get to learn, get to share, and learn to learn new stuff. And going forward, that makes you a better teacher. So welcome. As I share my screen, that is on remote learning, e-learning pedagogies and pillars. So so I hope the screen is more visible now on your end. Kiko, you can confirm that.
Yes, it's good now.
Thank you. So so as I said earlier on, that we'll be taking you through 6 main pillars: lesson planning, which becomes our first module for today; content development, assessment development; then collaboration in virtual classroom, student progress analytics, and communication and feedback. So on to our first module for today. When you talk about lesson planning, what do you need to know about a lesson plan? All of us here were trained and taken through rigorous teaching practice. And the best tool, the most effective tool for a good teacher is a lesson plan. Lesson plans, basically, we define them as written guides of what a teacher will do in order to achieve the goals or the learning outcomes that are outlined during the lesson. And so think about what your lesson would be. For instance, we know of a traditional, or what you can call a legacy lesson plan, follows a format that has probably a learning outcome, or what conventionally we used to call goals or objective. And therefore, you must be able to identify these. What are the learning outcomes? What do you want to achieve at the end of the lesson? It will also need to have the pedagogy or the teaching methods that you as an educator will employ in that kind of classroom. And your pedagogy should be able to take into consideration all learners from all walks of life. When you talk about special needs education, how is your pedagogy taking care of the time takers? How is your pedagogy taking care of the gifted learner? And then you also need to look at the evaluation or the assessment of learning. Has learning taken place at the end of the lesson? How do you assess that whether learning has taken place? Not teaching. You are assessing whether learning has has taken place? What are what we call the key performance indicators that will show you that indeed what you taught the learners today has been achieved or they have learned? So in planning your lesson, you should consider making a lesson that is easy. Creating an effective lesson plan is the key to effective teaching and a critical factor in achieving a positive student outcome. So when you are planning your lesson, and in this case, because we are so used to planning our physical classroom or face-to-face teaching lesson plans, how different is it when you are now dealing with a virtual classroom or when you're now teaching online? There isn't much difference as long as one or two things have to be outlined. But basically, your lesson plan online, if you are planning for an online class, you still have to have an objective, a format or a structure, and then of course, mapping out timing and allocating time for student participation. Remember, we don't have these students in the physical classroom, unlike in the normal physical classroom where you could encourage group work within that physical space. You still to be innovative enough to try and allocate time for student participation, despite the fact that you are at different geographical locations within the same platform. You should also be able to schedule for what we call virtual breaks to allow students to chat, use the bathroom maybe, and even share feedback or reflect about how the new format is going for them. And also, don't ditch your regular classroom foundation. It is still a class. The only difference is that you are not within the same physical space as a teacher and your learners. And furthermore, your lesson should also aim at developing each of the 6 levels of the cognitive domain, or what we call the abilities of the learner. You all are aware of the major framework that was developed, or what we call the Bloom's taxonomy. So your lesson plan should be able to take into consideration of the skill levels, or the 6 levels of cognitive development of the learner. So with this regard, just a wrap up of this Bloom's taxonomy. I know you guys have interacted with this before. So, so as educators, when you're planning and designing a lesson, we should make lessons that elicit different cognitive skills among the learners. So your lesson objectives should aim at developing each of the 6 levels as outlined in that infographic that you can be able to see. So the first level, or what you can call the lower level of the cognitive skill, or the Bloom's taxonomy, is the knowledge. This is basically recalling of facts. So in your lesson, does it have where students will be able to recall facts or retrieve, recognize, and maybe recall relevant knowledge from long-term memory? So within your lesson framework, some of the keywords that you could use in order to elicit or in order to ensure that your lesson has this level, you can talk of memorizing, defining, identify, repeat, recall, and so many others. So examples of question will be, maybe you'll be asking, if you're a science teacher in primary, you'll want to ask a student, maybe what is science, or maybe define the term germination, if maybe you are talking about growth and development. So identifying the labels also, rather, comprehension is the second level that we should be looking at. So what does comprehension basically means is you are testing whether students are able to understand facts. So test the students' ability to summarize and describe in their own words without necessarily relating to anything. So the keywords probably here would be describe, distinguish, explain, interpret, predict, recognize, and summarize. So a good question would be maybe what factors affect germination of a seed? Or if you are looking at classification of animals, you could say, what ideas show that a cat is a mammal? Yeah, so with such kind of question within your lesson, you are able to capture the comprehension level of these learners. These two levels are considered to be lower levels in the Bloom's taxonomy. So going on to the upper levels, we start at the application part. So in application, what should your lesson entail? Application basically is transfer of knowledge into a new situation. Yes, the learners have gotten the knowledge on germination in their science class. Can they apply this concept of germination in a new situation? So application questions encourage students to apply or transfer learning to their own life or to a context different than one which they have learned in class. So the keywords in this could be apply, compare, contrast, demonstrate, solve, and use. Maybe a question you could throw in there: what would result if you held, let's say, a metallic spoon over a candle flame with bare hands? So a science teacher here maybe is teaching about heat transfer, conduction. So you want this learner to transfer the knowledge on conduction to this situation that is requiring him to know that, yes, spoons are good conductors of heat. So can they apply that knowledge on conduction and solve a certain situation? Then we have the fourth level, which is the second level on the higher level, or higher order in the Bloom's taxonomy. That is the analysis. Analysis basically is breaking of knowledge in simple components. So these questions encourage students to break materials into parts, describe patterns and relationships among parts, and to subdivide information and to show how it is put together. So keywords here could be analyze, differentiate, explain, relate, research, and separate. So maybe a good question here that would bring out that part of analysis is, let's say, how do impurities affect the boiling point of water? If you're talking about boiling point, maybe, yeah. Then we have synthesis. Synthesis, this is piecing small components of related knowledge into one. And these questions encourage students to create something new by using combination of ideas from different sources to form a new whole group of knowledge or information. So keywords could be arrange, combine, create, design, develop, formulate, integrate, all this. You could maybe throw in a puzzle if it's a mathematics lesson, where now they need to arrange maybe prime numbers, or maybe they want to arrange to select and arrange what we could call odd numbers, and all that kind of knowledge. And then we also have evaluation, where now you are making value judgment on knowledge acquired. So evaluation questions here encourage the students to develop opinions and make value decisions about issues based on specific criteria. So keywords here would be assess, critique, evaluate, simplify, justify, and this could help the learner to really get to a higher order of thinking or cognitive development. I always encourage educators to, when you're doing a lesson plan, emphasize more on the higher order skills and not the lower order skills, because recalling and remembering, they cannot help a learner that much. So the learner is left with cramming. But with the higher order skills, the analysis, the synthesis, the application, evaluation, and all that, the learner is at a better vantage point to apply knowledge in different situations, and therefore bringing out what we call the 21st century skill on problem solving. So a question like, do you think eating sugary foods is a good or a bad thing? So that's an open question that gives the learner the leeway to critique or to give the pros and or the disadvantages of taking sugary food. So this leaves the learner with an open way of looking at a problem. We refer to it as horizontal way of thinking, where you have more solutions to a certain problem, unlike the vertical thinking where you only have one solution, basically directed by the educator. And therefore, having looked at this framework, it's also important for us to look at another slightly different framework in the context of e-learning, what we call the TPACK framework. TPACK is an acronym for technology, pedagogy, and content knowledge, TPACK. So the TPACK framework provides a map for understanding how to integrate technology into the classroom effectively. The framework was first introduced by Punya Mishra and Matthew Collier of Michigan State University. Even the diagrams that you see there have attributed that to the TPACK org, which is domiciled at Michigan State University. It identified three primary forms of knowledge, that is content knowledge. Then we have the pedagogical knowledge, and then we have the technological knowledge. All the three groups together into what you call a Venn diagram. What you can see on your screen, we have the technology knowledge. Let me get my pointer right. So we have the technological knowledge, we have the content knowledge, and we have the pedagogical knowledge. All these are interrelated and interdependent into what this diagram, we can call it a Venn diagram. We have technological knowledge interdependent on pedagogical knowledge. At this point, we call it the technological pedagogical knowledge, the TPK. So what is content knowledge? So content knowledge is basically what you as a teacher, you are teaching, and what is your own knowledge of the subject. So what the teacher is teaching and what is your own knowledge of that subject that you are teaching. So you need a solid understanding of the lesson concept. In other words, what you used to call in our micro teaching and teaching practice as mastery of content. Even when you're doing lesson observation, I know your lesson observers will always grade you according to how good are you at mastering the content that you are teaching as an educator. And then we have the pedagogical knowledge, the PK. So how do your students learn best, and what instructional design strategies do you need to meet their needs and the requirements of the lesson plan? So you as a teacher, you know that my students are not very good at listening, but rather they are good at working in groups. So I'll give them tasks. If that's a pedagogy where you want to look at maybe group work and then bring in maybe flipped classroom, for instance, or you want to bring in active teaching and learning, you know your students don't just listen. Their retention span is very minimal when they're just listening to you as an educator. So you want to soup things up and bring out better ways of ensuring that your learners get the best when they're learning. So your knowledge of how your learners learn best is what we can call pedagogical knowledge. And then we have the technological knowledge. You as an educator, what digital tools are available to you? Which do you know well enough to use? And which would be the most appropriate for the lesson at hand? So for example, in your lesson plan, students will need maybe to label a diagram and present. So the ability to fill in blanks with an answer key or find images from the internet, create presentation slides like what we are using today are very, very important. So once you know these tools available to you as an educator to use in your teaching, then we say you have knowledge on technological, you have a grasp on technological knowledge. So as I said earlier on that these three types of knowledge are interrelated, and therefore the intersections of the primary forms of the knowledge are very critical because they represent deeper levels of understanding. So we have the interrelationship between pedagogy and content, pedagogical knowledge and content knowledge. They all together form what we call technological pedagogical knowledge, or pedagogical content, pedagogical content knowledge. So technology and pedagogy and content have this area of intersection we are calling pedagogical content knowledge. So what is it all about? When you talk about pedagogical content knowledge, it is the understanding that best practices for teaching specific content to your specific students. You have an understanding on the best practices for teaching your content to your specific learners. And then the other area of interdependence is the technological content knowledge. So between the technological knowledge and the content knowledge, this blue or purple region is what we call the technological content knowledge, the TCK. So what is this all about? This is all to do with knowing how the digital tools available to you can enhance or transform the content, how it's delivered to students, and how your students can interact with it. Then finally, we have the third intersection between technology and pedagogy. And this intersection region is what we call technological pedagogical knowledge, TPK. So understanding how to use your digital tools as a vehicle to the learning outcomes and experiences that you want. So, and one major important part that brings together the technological knowledge, the pedagogical knowledge, and the content knowledge is what we are calling the technological pedagogical content knowledge. Now that's what is giving us the TPACK. That's where the framework derives its name, the technological pedagogical content knowledge, TPACK. So what is this TPACK? This is what we can call a sweet spot, yeah? The sweet spot, otherwise known as the TPACK, represents a full understanding of how to teach with technology. Keep in mind that this is not the same as having knowledge of each of the three primary concepts individually. Instead, it is the point of TPACK is to understand how to use technology to teach concepts in a way that enhances student learning experiences. And therefore, with these two types of framework, you can be able to prepare a lesson that highlights the traditional cognitive skills, which I talked of under Bloom's taxonomy, the higher level skills. And now, in the new normal, knowing how to integrate technology in your teaching and knowing the importance of the technological tools, how you can blend them with your content knowledge that you know, and the methodology or your pedagogy of how to teach that using technology. So the two gives you a hybrid of a 21st century educator who you are here today. So as we look at this lesson planning today, we must also first of all understand the different modes of learning or teaching. I already mentioned earlier on, our traditional way of teaching has been there for so many years, the face-to-face learning, where the teacher and the learner have to be together in a physical space. And the teacher talks, the learners listen, they interact, and all that. We cannot do away with that completely, but we can improve on that in scenarios where, for example, we had the pandemic. The physical classrooms were rendered useless. We could not have teachers with the learners sitting together in the same physical space. So those institutions or organizations that had adapted earlier on integrating ICT in their classrooms had a soft landing in transiting from now that physical space to online teaching and learning. And therefore, what are the different modes of learning that we think we should be looking at? That takes us to what format of e-learning you want to adapt for your learning. So e-learning takes two different formats. We have what we call the asynchronous format. Asynchronous format is basically an in-self-paced learning where students learn on their own schedule without any real-time instructor. So the course content or the lesson, pre-recorded videos, lectures, and tutorials are basically uploaded, let's say, on a learning management system. And the learner can visit that site at their own free time and learn on their own. Things like tests and quizzes and homeworks and assignments can be accessed by the students enrolled in the course at any time, as long as the course is active for them and it's available. Lessons may also be administered on what I've already mentioned, learning management system like Moodle. We have Google Classroom, We can talk of Tovuti and so many others that we have, learning management system that we have out there. The learner in this case is able to control the amount of material they consume, as well as the duration of time they need to learn the new information properly. So it's basically a more of a self-paced, learning kind of learning, what we call the asynchronous. Now, the lack of physical instructor in an e-learning can be made up to a large extent using what we call a guided learning strategy. So in this case, in a guided learning strategy, learners are guided through the course by what you can call a digital avatar or a character. For instance, you can visit certain sites and then you find a simulation of, let's say, an instructor telling you that you need help, click here. They can even, the avatars can also guide you through if maybe you have a problem we have students maybe who might have challenges in reading. They have a problem with sight. They may be partially blind, so they cannot read well. The avatar can take over and read for them so that they can be able to decode the voice. So this is a hybrid of asynchronous to synchronous. So yes, we don't have a real instructor there, but through programming and AI, we have come up with what we call an avatar to act as a guide through the course. Then we have what we call the synchronous mode of e-learning. This is what we basically call the real-time or live classes, live sessions, whereby these are classes that are organized in a live virtual meeting room. For example, what we are doing right now is a synchronous type of learning. You have an instructor who is live together with the students on a platform like Zoom or Microsoft Teams or Google Meet and all that. So students and teachers meet together to communicate with voice, video, or even whiteboard that are interactive. Then students and instructors also need to be online at the same time. Meetings and lectures occur at the same hour. All attendees must be online and connected to the internet at specific hour. Sorry. Whatever format that you as an educator prefer to use in delivering your lesson, you should consider an appropriate lesson plan that will guide your content delivery effectively. So how do you ensure that whether you go synchronous way or asynchronous way, the bottom line is, do you have a lesson plan that will guide you, that will help you gather resources, that will help you navigate through the lesson? If the lesson is 35 minutes, if it is 40 minutes, if it is 1 hour online, how do you manage to go through? A simple format of an online lesson plan is what I always recommend to my colleagues, is what we call the 4A lesson plan model. What is the 4A lesson plan model? Now, the 4A lesson plan model focuses on 4 main concepts, and each is necessary for student success. First, we have what we call activating. The first A stands for activating prior knowledge. What does that mean? Can you be able to gauge what the learner already know as they come to this lesson? It's basically like assessing the entry level to your lesson. What do the learners know that they will need in this lesson? So you're activating student schema or assessing what we call the entry level. What are some of the activities that we can help us in trying to achieve or activate prior knowledge for these learners? We have what we call gallery works. Gallery works are basically giving tasks to different groups, then allowing one group, maybe if it's in a physical way, moving to see what the other group is doing. But in a virtual setup, if you give tasks to students prior to the new knowledge that you want to teach, you can allow the students to share their screen and guide the rest of the class on how they achieved 1, 2, 3 things. You can also use what you call brainstorming. Give them tasks and let them pair up virtually and discuss. Let them have breakout sessions within that classroom environment, a virtual classroom environment. Go to the discussion rooms discuss, and then come back and share with the rest of the class. We shall also be looking at things like concept mapping. I'll be able to take you through what concept mapping is. Basically what we call mind maps to intrigue the learners and to assess what do these learners know about this. Can they fill in the gap and all that? You could also use gamification in learning. Very good softwares like Minecraft can be used. Scratch can also be used for teachers who are taking coding grade 5 and 4. You all know this. Question answers and method, you can also use that to invoke that interest, or to assess what does this learner know as he comes into my lesson today. Then the second A stands for acquire new knowledge. So you are now moving from that level of assessing what the learner knows or prior knowledge to now transiting to acquiring new knowledge. Basically, this is like lesson development. From the introduction, remember, maybe you are doing something to do previewing the previous lesson. Into the lesson development now, you want now to bring in the new concept that you want these learners to learn for the day. So this promotes higher order thinking to enable students to make connections and interconnections between the course material and real life experiences. You should also foster what we call inquiry throughout the lesson and among the students. Which methods can we use to achieve this? You can use things like learning logs. If maybe you are teaching about maybe, let's say you're teaching about peace or values in a certain subject, you could bring in, let's say, a peace ambassador in your virtual classroom, give him like 2 minutes to talk about this, about the importance of maintaining peace, or maybe the importance of being honest and all that. You could use also mini lessons within a lesson, yeah, where maybe you can now try to bring in, let's say, pre-recorded videos of a certain event happening. This is where I always want teachers to be very innovative, especially when it comes to using ICT. You have a very powerful tool. ICT integration does not require you to spend millions on putting up computer labs and all that. Teachers have one major tool, and I believe all of you guys here have a smartphone. Make that tool your best teaching aid or your best teaching tool. With that smartphone, you can do a lot and bring technology to your classroom. You don't need a projector. You don't need a laptop, yeah? And sometimes even the internet, you don't need it. For instance, if you are a farmer at your home and it's planting season, yeah? Use that phone to take up the germinating seed, the maize or the bean, then bring it to your students. Let them see. At that point, you know, you've just taken a photo and printed it maybe or brought it to classroom and they have seen. And with the government support of the e-learning, at least you have those tablets that were given to you under the free laptop project. What are you doing with them? Are they somewhere locked in the principal's office gathering dust? That's a disservice. You need to get them out, dust them off, use them. Let us not fear using these gadgets. They'll go a long way in promoting our sense of knowledge when it comes to ICT integration. Then the application part. What does it talk about? The application is where now you are consolidating what has been learned and make it relevant. In this case, learning logs, sharing of products, debriefing on processes, performances, and publications. You could also use real-world activities or scenarios or even simulations. For example, maybe you want to teach about pollination, cross-pollination versus self-pollination. You might be teaching this and maybe you're a teacher in Mandera or in Moyale and the vegetation there is a bit tricky. What can you do? Go to the internet, get a simulation video on how cross-pollination occurs or maybe how self-pollination occurs. Bring it to your students. They'll be able to relate. Yes, this is not within my environment, but somewhere this is what happens. You see a bee moving from a maize flower to maybe from one flower to the other. And that is basically what bringing technology into classroom will be doing. And finally, the last A for this 4A lesson plan model talks about assessment. So you want to gauge what has been learned and what needs to be further developed. So how do we achieve this? Use of quizzes, open and closed book tests, think, pair, and share approach. You can use small conferences, take the learners to small groups and let them within that virtual space, let them discuss and share experiences. And then you can also do polling things like Mentimeter. Yeah, those are some of the things that you guys have been able to go through during your remote teaching and learning. Mentimeter, you could use maybe SurveyMonkey and all that to collect information within that virtual classroom and see assess whether the learners have been able to understand. So with this 4M model lesson plan, I want us to have a look at two types of lesson plans. Later on, as we proceed with the training, I'll be able to adapt these templates onto your different subjects and probably share them on the WhatsApp wall that we have. But these are just lesson plans that are a bit on a higher level. This is for high school, but the flow is the same. But as we proceed, I'll be able to adapt one or two for CBC and see how best you can come up with a good CBC lesson plan that you can use to teach remotely. So that takes us to two types of lesson plan. That's the synchronous lesson plan template. We'll also share this in the wall, and the synchronous lesson plan template. So to start us off, let us look at the asynchronous lesson. Time to just take you guys through. So with the 4S of a very good lesson plan. Sorry. So what you see there is a perfect template or example for a synchronous lesson plan. And you start by having your subtopic up there for the day, the lesson overview. So you can start by saying, in this lesson, I will be able to do this about this, and you'll also be able to introduce this to you. So one thing that you find it's very common in such lesson plans, because you'll be doing a virtual classroom, whether you're going to go a synchronous way or the synchronous way, even when you're communicating the objectives to the learners, let them be in first persona, not passive. For example, in this, by the end of this lesson, you should, but you don't say the learner should. When you say the learner should, that is referring to in passive or in third party or something. So let the language also reflect to the learner, so that as the learner is going through that content on the virtual platform, it is communicating to the learner himself actively. By the end of this lesson, you should be able, or you will be able to do this about this, and you'll also be introduced to, let's say, germination in plants. So there's the onboarding session. The onboarding basically is what is the key concept and how will the learner go about it. So why is the learner here? So you're giving the objective, the lesson goals. What are the specific learning outcomes? What the learner is expected to know at the end of that session? What will she need before starting the lesson? So you want to give the learner the resources. Maybe you are telling them, before you come to this lesson, make sure maybe you have a machine that has video and audio, your microphone is on and all that, yeah? And maybe you are connected to the internet, for example. And then give lesson duration. In this case, break down the lesson in introduction, where you're assessing prior knowledge, maybe 5 minutes or 2 minutes, depending on the levels. Those educators who are teaching grade 1, 2, 3, maybe, the lesson duration is a bit different from maybe grade 4, 5, 6. So consider that time frame, lesson development, then the apply and practice session, and then the assessment, where you're now giving feedback and all that. So you can also say, to complete this lesson, you will need access to maybe a phone, a computer, see? So the introduction, where you're activating prior knowledge, I've already said you are assessing the learners know about the concept, brainstorming, concept maps, and graded quizzes, yeah, and all that. An example of maybe an ungraded quiz that you can have in an introduction, part of your lesson plan is this one. Maybe you're teaching about classification of animals. So you can say all animals are mammals. So the learner is supposed to tick true, false, or maybe. You're just assessing what does this learner know about mammals. Then all mammals are warm-blooded. True, false, or maybe. So this is a question. It's not going to be graded, but it's just helping you, the educator, to know where are my learners before I dwell into the main concept. Then for lesson development, where the learners are now acquiring new knowledge to promote higher order thinking, it enables the students to make connections and interconnections and life experience. So resources, maybe materials you might want to use, like expert videos, open source videos, active reading and note taking, and all that. So maybe you could say in this session, for example, you will watch a video on YouTube to study a lesson about mammals. So you can give a link there where if the learner clicks on it, it goes to. I'll be able to share this lesson plan template for you guys. So because of the interest of time, we'll not even go to the links of the videos. This will be able to do it at your own free time. Then as you go through the resources, you need to take note of maybe major characteristics of mammals, classification of mammals. You're now instructing the learners to know what they need to know to learn as they watch that video. So you don't want these learners to be in a cinema mood, where they're just watching videos for entertainment. Give them a task so that as they watch that video, they should be learning 1, 2, or 3. Then you can give them a quiz at the end of that video for them to answer to it from what they have learned from the video. Then practicing and applying section in your lesson plan, it is consolidating what has been learned and makes it relevant in activities. So learners will maybe content while engaging with each other through virtual collaboration teams to connect and reflect on given missions. And then showcases their work, or they have been working to each other. They correct one another. They can do maybe to improve that. And where now you're gauging what has been learned, and the educator here, you need to document all students' work, assessments, and engagement on a learning management system drive. Why? Because in the modern way of teaching, assessments should not be summative. Every activity you give in class, grade the learner. They will a term or the period or the year. So that is it with the asynchronous type of lesson plan. What about the synchronous one? For a synchronous one, which I'll also be able to share later on, is let me minimize this first. So for a synchronous one, we want to see what is where there is no real-time teacher within the look at it, and then they go and there. But for asynchronous, like what the learner are there within at the same time. For example, here, this is also in high school, but the flow is basically the same. You are coming up with a lesson that maybe you need to highlight the topic. Maybe if I could try to zoom in. You want to come up with the rationale of why the learner needs to know this. So look at even the language. What knowledge is to be taught? Why should the students learn this knowledge? How do I teach this lesson? Are you going to teach this the way I'm doing using PowerPoint? Or a clip will be watched and notes written? Or are you going to be using pivotal questions? So where is the topic in the syllabus? Is it in the first biology topic in Form 3 syllabus? So you are guiding the learners, even if he had forgotten, to know, I can, if I miss out this, I can still refer this content or this knowledge from my course book. Then you also give objectives, in this case, the learning outcomes. So look at how the learning outcome is. You should be talking of, by the end of the lesson, you should be able to. So you give what the learners need to know, and look at how it has been coded. For example, in this case, define keywords, that is understanding. Draw and label diagrams on taxonomic units, that is synthesis. And then identify the general characteristics of animals. Identifying. We have quite a number of these models and all that. The most important thing that you should be able to keep in mind is this is 21st century, and every of your lesson that you should be teaching in your classroom, you should at least have 2 or 3 21st century skills that you want to instill in your learners. Are you talking about creativity? Are you talking about critical thinking? Are you talking about collaboration? Are you talking about communication? Or are you talking about problem solving? So have at least 2 21st century skills that you want your learners to get from that lesson. It is no longer normal to just the teacher being the only source of knowledge. Teach these learners how to solve a real world problem. Teach them how to collaborate. Teach them how to think critically. And then, of course, resources that you must be able to bring out before you teach this lesson. What are some of the ICT resources that you need as an educator and also as the learner in order to go through this virtual classroom successfully? Maybe you need a computer, maybe a projector as a teacher, a flash animation, maybe Java Flash player, images, internet, YouTube, open education resources, and so many other resources. You could also maybe need non-ICT resources, maybe for future references or for onward references, for example, books, worksheets, chalkboards, notebooks, real teaching aids, and all that. The lesson plan will have 4 main stages: the introduction, the development, and then the reinforcement, or what we could call you want now to reinforce on what this learner has learned, then the review, conclusion, and the assessment. We'll also be able to adapt one for the teachers in the house, because some majority of you teachers are from the primary level. So I'll be able to adapt one example of a lesson plan in a given subject and also be able to share with you within the groups. So those are the 2 at least type of lessons that lesson plans that we can have a look at. So going forward, then from this, we want to look at lesson plan design review. So once you have planned your lesson, how do you know that you have captured all that you wanted in your lesson? And how do you know that your lesson plan is suitable or is ideal or is exemplary? There is what we call a lesson plan design review framework, or what I can call a rubric. A rubric is what you design to evaluate maybe a lesson or a learning, assess learning, and or assess teaching. So in designing your lesson plan that is suitable for virtual or e-learning, what key points should you put into consideration? That's why I thought I should throw in this rubric for us to just have a look at what a TPACK exemplary lesson design will look like. So in this TPACK, let me try to zoom in. So in this lesson design review rubric, you want to assess your lesson against the TPACK framework. So what is the TPACK assessment criteria? That is what should be in your first. So there we are. So what is it that technology and curriculum knowledge, the TCK, or the technology and content knowledge, curriculum-based technology use? So you'll have a scale of 1 to 5, maybe fair 1 to 5 in terms of, is your presentation or simulation in the lesson design weakly aligned with any STEM curriculum, or maybe if you're talking about science and all that objectives or the curriculum objectives? If it is 1 to 5, then it is fair. Satisfactorily, the presentation and or the simulation in the lesson design are partially aligned with the curriculum learning outcomes. Good, maybe between 11 and 15, you're saying the presentation and simulation in the lesson design is aligned with one or more curriculum learning outcomes. And excellent if the presentation and or the simulation in the lesson design is strongly aligned with one or more STEM or curriculum learning outcomes. Keywords in when you're designing a rubric: weakly aligned, partially aligned, aligned, and then strongly aligned. You also want to assess technology and pedagogical strategies, the TPK. So do the technology use weakly support pedagogical strategies for interactive teaching and learning and 21st century skills, such as critical thinking or collaboration? Then you have fair. So when you are designing your lesson plan, you'll be looking at the assessment criteria. My lesson plan is assessed against technology and content knowledge, against technology and pedagogical strategy, against technology selection, and against technology and pedagogical and content fit. So all these, from a scale of 1 to about 20, you'll be able to assess yourself. And for those people who do lesson observations under the TPACK, this is a very important tool that you can use in assessing the lesson plan of the educator. And when you give a 5, or when you give a 3 and the educator had given himself or herself a 3, a 4, you can now be able to say, I gave you a 3 because this and this and this was not fitting. Then the educator will not have conflict, or what you can call, there's this section on the TPACK that where the arbitration, yes, where you don't agree with the observer, and therefore you take it to the next person, who normally is maybe the deputy or maybe the principal. We can avoid such by having such tools at our disposal, so that even lesson observation during the real-time classroom teaching, you have tools to assess assessment criteria. So the teacher will not feel that unamonea ama you are always against me. You want me to transfer from this school. Those are some of the issues that normally crop up when we don't have a clear framework of assessing performance. But with such a tool, assessment becomes very, very easy. Then we're looking at also, I want us also to go ahead and look at, we'll also be able to share that rubric with you in the groups, so that at your own free time, you can be able to go and have a look at it. The next part I want us to look at is lesson planning, the skill plan. And at this juncture, we'll want to take you through a real life or a real-time interactivity session on the portal, on Angaza Elimu portal, where we'll be able to be taken through how to create a skill plan. A skill plan is basically a simple version of what you have been learning today, the lesson plan. So how do you create a good skill plan that will guide your lesson on a virtual platform? So basically, a skill plan is a building block for interactive digital content development, adaptive assessment, both formative and summative, and also tracking student skills mastery levels and evaluation. So our activity will be for us to build a skill plan based on the subtopic, maybe place value, for example, if it is mathematics. But in this case, we'll leave it open because most of you don't teach mathematics, or not all of you are able to teach mathematics. You'll be able to come up with a skill plan. An example of a skill plan that we are looking at, probably, in this case, maybe you are working with, let's say, grade 6 or grade 5 or standard 8 math subtopic, maybe place values or numbers. So you need to write down the skills to support your objective in helping the students to master the place value concept, or the numbers concept. So you have numbers, your topic, you now just highlight my topic will be numbers. The subtopic will be maybe place value and total value. What skill do I want my learners to gain? Finding the place value of a digit in a number, or understanding the significance of all digits in a number. So this is an example of a skill plan that we are talking about. So as I give Kiko time to set up the Angaza Elimu Educational Portal, so that to guide you guys on how to come up with a simple skill plan on that portal, I want to say that I've come to the end of today's session. Remember, we promised to take 1 hour. I don't know how long I've taken. Okay, I've taken about exactly 1 hour and some 5 minutes, so it's still in time. So at this juncture, maybe just a recap on today's learning, on key areas that we have touched on. We have looked at use of cognitive skill framework, that's, remember, the Bloom's taxonomy, as a guide in lesson planning. We also went ahead and looked at the TPACK framework in lesson design, and then a map for understanding probably how to integrate technology in classroom effectively. And then we looked at asynchronous versus synchronous mode of e-learning or virtual learning and teaching. So taking note of the e-learning lesson format before designing the lesson plan, very important. And then we have also looked at how we can be able to develop a simple skill plan, which is a building block for interactive digital content development, assessments, and evaluation. Very important, useful links that you can use. I think Vida will be able to share some of these links in the chat section, so that you can also, at your own opportune time, you'll be able to go through the links where you can get important content for extended learning beyond what we have learned today. We have the Angaza Elimu platform. We have the framework, the TPACK framework platform, where you can get all that about the TPACK and all that. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. Over to you, Kiko.
Thank you so much, Teacher Maxwell, for that great presentation. I've been following on the chat, and it was really wonderfully done. Really appreciate you for that. Yeah, so because of time, so what I've just said, we'll be able to send the recording of the session. And what I just typically do is show you on how to be able to do on the last bit for the skill plan on the Angaza Elimu platform. So just to mention, we'll be using this platform to apply the skills that we've learned for each of the session. And so what I'll just do is quickly go to the platform and have that used, how best you can be able to do it on the platform. So I'll share my screen. Just a minute. Yeah, so typically what we'll do is through your devices or any device that can be able to connect to the internet, just Google angazaelimu.com, we'll be able to send the link. And once you're on that platform, we'll be able to share user accounts for every teacher today, and also following also with the students' accounts that will be used to support the collaboration between the students and the teachers. And so for the purpose of the teachers today, what we'll be able to do, so once you get into the platform, the first key thing you'll see these two buttons, sign and register. So the first button that will be useful for you, because you already have an account, is sign in, so you don't need the register button. So for example, for me, I'll sign in as a teacher so that I can be able to show you how to create a skill plan. So we'll be able to provide you a username and a password. So those two details will be able to allow you to access the platform. And once you log in into the platform, this is what we'll be able to view. So it automatically takes you to a teacher dashboard. And on the teacher dashboard, you'll see what we call here the learning plan. And so for the learning plan, so it's everything has been curated for you, so you don't need to create anything as per the classes. So you'll be able to choose which class you're teaching. So for my example, and what Teacher Maxwell gave, I'll choose class 8 math. And then I'll be able to choose the topic, which is numbers, and then the subtopic, place value and total value. And then I'll just come straight here and pick up, just a minute. To pick up the place values that that Teacher Maxwell said. So I'll be able to paste one and add my screen here. So add scale, and then be able to, you can also be able to type depending on the scale that you're using or the scale plan that you're developing for that specific lesson. And then I'll add the second scale. Once I'm done, then I'll be able to create plan. And it successfully be able to be populated down here. So what I chose was place value, finding the place value of a digit in a number and understanding the significance of digits. So that would be the first task for us today. As we be able to continue, we'll be able to share for the other lessons upcoming, content development, assignments development, and all these will be on these other platforms, but we'll be able to send you videos on how to navigate the platform so that you can be able to use and that. Yeah, so I'll choose to stop there. I think that brings up to the end of our lesson today. Our colleague Vida should be able to follow up and be able to give more further resources onto what is needed for the assignments or for the task, and how best we can support you. So Vida, over to you to give the closing remarks. And yes, so we can also be able to open up as Vida comes up. You can also be able to open up for question. Hi, Vida.
Thanks. Hi, Kiko. Thank you. I think there's a concern from the chat section that you slow down a little. So I'll just request you go back a bit to the platform.
Oh, sincere apologies for that. So I'll be able to just quickly redo that again. Yeah, so what I said is, I hope I'm a bit clearer now, that for everyone, we'll be able to send this platform, angazaelimu.com, and it's the platform that we'll be using to access or to do the resources. It's also the platform where the students will be able to get the resources that we built. So this is an e-learning platform that supports digital teaching and learning. And so once you get the login details, so every teacher from every of the schools will be able to get these details, and they'll be able to use them to access the platform. And so once you get your username and your password, just click on sign in, and it should be able to authenticate you or to allow you to get into the platform. And once you're onto the platform, then it should be able to show you the teacher dashboard. And on the teacher dashboard, there are a number of features there. So there's quiz progress, where you can be able to see the progress the students are making, similarly to the assignment. And specifically for today's lesson, where we are covering on lesson planning, you'll be able to see this learning plan, where you can be able to create a specific learning plan as Teacher Maxwell showed us. And so I just typically click that point for the learning plan. The system has already created all the classes for you. So what you'll be able to do is highlight the class that maybe you're teaching. So for example, for me, I select class 8. And then I'll be able to select a subject. So Teacher Maxwell showed us math. So I'll do math. Again, according to the curriculum, it also shows the different specific topics as per the syllabus. So depending on the topic that you're teaching, I do understand now it's the start of the year. So you might be teaching on numbers. And then it also shows the subtopics, also all of them populated there. So pretty much there's nothing to be doing on populating the topics. And so I'll be able to choose place value. And here then now you can be able to, depending on what are the specific skills that you need the students to understand, as what Teacher Maxwell has just taken you through, then you can be able to type that skill plan here. And so for me, one of the skills plan that I want my students to understand is to get understanding the significance of all digits in a number. Once you're done with that, you just click add skill. You can be able to type as many skills as possible, depending on, I think, the Bloom's taxonomy that Teacher Maxwell showed us on the different skills. And once you're done with that, then you come just to this green button and you'll be able to select create plan. So with that, it's able to save your learning plan, and anytime that you need to retrieve these, you can always log into your platform and access your learning plan. You can also edit it further if you need to add more skills, or if you need to delete it, that you can also do that for the platform. So that will be our task for this week as we prepare for next week on lesson on content development. And so we'll send all the instructions, and we'll be here as a team to support you and see how best you can benefit to implement the skills that that you've learned from this specific lesson. Yep. So Vida, over to you for any questions.
Kindly, if you have any question, you can post on the chat section. Meanwhile, I'll be sharing all the materials that have been used today. I've just typed our link on the chat section, so you can visit out. And since I have all your details, I'll be able to share your account. You can log in as a team. I'll also be sharing the links that have been used by Teacher Maxwell for the lesson planning. Presentation from Kiko, you've seen how it works. I'll share a video on the same so that you can revisit and practice. So this week, as Kiko has said, it shall be on lesson planning. So we shall just be practicing what has been taught today. And depending on each level of the classes you teach, if it's required to prepare a lesson plan for grade 1, teaching grade 8, 6, standard 8, standard 6 or grade 5, then you also required to prepare a lesson plan on that. So if you have any questions, I'll take the next 10 minutes. I think we have only 14 minutes for the call to end to ask any questions.
Yeah, so if you do have a question, I think Vida, I can see a number of teachers who have raised their questions. So just on how they're displayed on the phone, I'd be able to start with them. So I see Teacher Munguti, if you can go ahead and unmute yourself and ask the question, I'll appreciate.
I'm asking.
Hi, Teacher Munguti. Teacher Munguti, we've lost you. Maybe you can check your connection. Also, feel free to type in on the chat and we'll be able to respond that. Teacher Ken Ekesa, if you could go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hello.
Hello, Teacher Ken Ekesa.
Yes, there is something I really wanted to confirm when it comes to the issue of going to an online preparation for a lesson. Yes?
Yes, I can hear you.
You went a bit faster than I could follow you up. Possibly if you can give some guidelines on the site to access such information. Thank you.
Oh yeah, thank you, Teacher Ken, for that. So, located on Angaza eLearning platform. So that's where you'll be able. So if you just go to your device and Google Angaza Elimu, then you'll be able to find the platform. And once you find the platform, so it's angazaelimu.com. So don't worry, we'll be able to send you that link. So once you Google it on your device, then you'll also be provided with an account that will be able to sign in to access the platform. So username and password. Once you use that username and password to sign in, then it will automatically authenticate you and logs you into the teacher dashboard, where you'll be able to get to access the specific features. So if you scroll down, you'll see the learning plan. And on the learning plan, you'll be able to select the different classes that you want to use, the subject that you want to teach, the topic that you want to teach as per the curriculum, so that's divided, and as per the subtopic. And from that, you'll be able to type in a skill as per what Teacher Maxwell has taught for that specific lesson plan. And once it's done, then you can just add the screen and it will be populated on your account. And anytime you need that skill, then you just need to come and log in back to your account, and you'll be able to view that specific skill plan for that, and you can be able to use that onto the platform. I do hope that answers the question. Hi, Teacher Ken. I think we've lost you, Teacher Ken, but yeah, feel free to just type on the chat.
No.
Hello, yes.
No.
Yep.
Okay, I have it fully answered. Thank you for that.
You're most welcome.
Thank you.
Teacher Martin, if you could go ahead and unmute yourself. We can't hear you, Teacher Martin. Maybe you can just switch off your video because of the connection. Yeah, now maybe you can speak. Hi, Teacher Martin. I think we've lost him. Manyata Primary, if you could go ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay, hello, sir.
Hello, hello.
Yeah, this is Manyata Primary School staff.
Yes, we can hear you.
Teacher Gitiro asking on behalf of the other teachers.
Okay.
Yeah, is there any certification after the program?
Yes, so we will be able to provide certification after the program.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're most welcome. Teacher Julius Diede, you can go ahead and unmute yourself. I see your hand is up.
Okay.
Great.
Yes, good afternoon. Good afternoon,
sir.
Yes, first of all, I want to thank you for the good presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, we have enjoyed the lesson. I wanted to ask if the slides that were being presented there can be put on our WhatsApp wall so that at least we can print them for further review.
Yeah, we'll be able to send the recording and then of the documents used so that we can be able to use for further review. So we'll send as many resources as possible.
Thank you so much.
You're most welcome.
Okay.
BMT Primary, you can go ahead and unmute yourself. I'll appreciate.
This is Bomet staff.
Yes, Bomet. Yeah.
Bomet Primary Township. And we want to thank you for this program, though we were late in joining you. And I have heard what I want to ask, whether we'll get the training manual. We'll be grateful, but I have heard you do that. Thank you so much.
Yes, we'll send. You're most welcome. We'll send the recording. Sounds great. Teacher Alice Muthoni, I think that's the full name. You can go ahead and unmute yourself. Kindly unmute yourself. I think we've lost. Alice, just press the unmute button. We'll appreciate. She does that. Teacher Mary Mwaka, if you can go ahead and unmute yourself too. Teacher Mary Mwaka. Teacher Boniface Okesa, if you can go ahead and unmute yourself. Boniface Okesa. Teacher Abay's Galaxy A11, if you could go ahead and unmute yourself. Teacher Peter Mwangi, I see your hand is up. You can unmute yourself.
Mute.
Okay. Good evening.
Good evening, Teacher Peter Mwangi.
Okay, my question is, what is the relationship between the 4A lesson plan and the other one which we have, which is the 5E lesson plan?
Yeah, great question. So I'll hand over that to Teacher Maxwell. Teacher Maxwell, if you can be able to pick up that question.
Yes, thank you so much, Kiko. Thank you, Peter, for the question. You want the difference between the 5A versus the 5E. So basically, let me start by saying that different lesson plan models are out there. They are all been designed depending on the type of the learners that you are teaching, and also depending on the age level. But basically, why I chose on the 4A lesson plan is something that is more similar to our traditional lesson planning approach. You remember the normal traditional teaching lesson planning, we normally just have the introduction, lesson development, then maybe evaluation, and maybe assessment. So it is just been souped up to add on those 5 areas on a lesson plan, so that apart from just doing your normal introduction, we are so used to introducing our lesson by previewing the last lesson learned. So in these 4A, we are now bringing in, as you preview that lesson, can you also be able to assess prior knowledge, not necessarily what was learned yesterday or in your previous lesson, but maybe this is something the learners had learned in the previous grade. For example, in grade 4, and now you're in grade 5. So you'll not call that preview of the previous lesson, but you'll just call it assessing prior. This is more broad. For the 5E, for the 5E lesson model, I'm yet to know about it, but let me get to understand it further, then I'll be able to communicate that in our next cycle before we start on lesson development.
Thank you.
What?
Teacher Abai, you can go ahead and unmute yourself. Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, sir. How are you?
I'm good, sir. How about you?
I'm also fine. I really appreciate you for the short presentation. But I'm asking you people to at least improve the program because it is not clear sometimes.
Oh, the
I
audio?
got myself lost out of the program. But
okay. We'll check on that, sir.
Sometimes it is not clear. So please adjust the program so that we can see you clearly in a view of our eyes. But we thank for the presentation.
Yes.
Yeah. And also,
yes, sir.
Another thing, Kiunga Primary is not connected to Wi-Fi. So please liaise with the concerned people to at least connect us so that we can enjoy the program like any other teacher in Kenya.
Okay, sir.
Thank you.
You're most welcome and have a great evening. Teacher Alice Mudoni, if you can go ahead and speak now.
You can hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, Teacher Alice.
First and foremost is to appreciate you for the program. And then I'm from Muslim. We are advantaged to have the Wi-Fi installed with us through the UNICEF. And my question was now, the program, is it, you can update us on, it is running from 3:30 to what time and for how many days? Is it Mondays only or Mondays to Friday or how many days?
Yeah, thank you for that, Teacher Alice. So the teacher training will take 6 weeks. Training will only be happening on Mondays from 3:30 to 5 p.m. So for the next 6 Mondays. And then after every training session, we'll reach out with resources where you can practice what you've learned on the eLearning platform. So we'll be able to send you all the details for you to access the platform, and then also for the students to access the platform. So Vida will be able to reach out and share the resources and the instructions. But the training is only happening on Mondays alone.
Okay, okay. For the consecutive Mondays until the 6th week, eh?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're most welcome. Teacher Martin, I see your hand is still up. So maybe you can go ahead and unmute yourself. Teacher Martin. We're still not able to hear you, Teacher Martin. Maybe you can check your audio and then I'll be back to you. Teacher Boniface Wekesa. Yes, good evening, Teacher Boniface Wekesa. Hello.
Yes, I'm Boniface Bekesa from Baringo South.
Yes.
Yes, I have prepared the program, but I was just requesting for improvement. That is on the side of network. I think it's a bit low. I can't get you clear.
Oh, okay. We'll be able to work on that, Teacher Boniface.
Okay, thank you.
You're most welcome. Teacher Felix Mutiso, if you can go ahead and unmute yourself. Felix Mutiso.
Thank you. I believe. Hello.
Hi. Hello, Teacher Felix.
Yes.
Yes, I can hear you well.
Yes, I believe you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you, sir.
Thank you. We are from Liboy Primary and Garissa Sub-County. But we have an issue with our network. And we believe that if you help us with the handbooks of the today's session, we go through them as a staff, will be of a great help to us as a team.
Yeah, thank you for that. We'll be able to follow up on the network and then send the recording.
Otherwise, thank you.
Sorry?
Thank you.
You're most welcome.
Thank you.
We'll follow up.
Thank you.
You're most welcome. Tichanganja Joel, I hope I pronounced that well. Tichanganja Joel, if you can go ahead and unmute yourself. Teacher Patricia Madenge, you could go ahead and unmute yourself. Teacher Patricia Madenge.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm good. The session was awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just when you're making the presentations, please enlarge the font so that you can be able to see and take notes.
Oh, okay, sure. Point taken. We'll be able to do that. And
okay, thank you. Next time.
You too. You're most welcome. Teacher with the font Techno N2S. N2S, you can go and unmute yourself. Techno N2S, kindly unmute yourself. Teacher with the name Zoom user, if you can go ahead and unmute yourself. Yeah, hello, go ahead and speak. Can see you.
Okay, I think you're fine.
Yes, I hope you are too.
Okay, I'm Emmanuel from Kiunga Primary, Lamu County.
Yes.
Yeah, my concern is on Wi-Fi connection. We have not yet connected with the Wi-Fi. So I don't know which plan you have for us, maybe.
Oh, okay, we'll be able to communicate that with UNICEF. Yeah. Then.
Okay, another thing.
Yes.
I wanted to know if do you have the Angaza Elimu app from the Google Play Store?
Yes, but that's at the point it's only for students. So once we onboard the students, they can be able to use that right now. For you as the teacher, you can access through the web app.
Okay, thank you.
You're most welcome. Yeah. Teacher Sushili Salim. I hope I've got it right.
Yeah, how are you?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm good. Now, this presentation actually is very nice.
Yes.
But the problem is we have had problems of the network. I don't know how far you can strengthen this so that at least we guys in the other side, we can get connected. We have been have problem of the connections. Please, can you get a rectification of the same? Thank you very much.
You're most welcome. We'll be able to communicate that.
Thank you very much.
Teacher Techno N2S. I think that's the last hand that I have so that we can also be able to complete the session. Teacher 5Ds ZDSC. You could go ahead and unmute yourself. Teacher 5D7DSA. I think that's how your device is named. I think we've lost them. Yeah, so I think because of time, we've taken 10 of your minutes. We do apologize for that, but we appreciate you coming on board and looking forward to engaging you in the next weeks and also having communication on this point. Yes, there's a bit of hello.
Don't lower hand,
yeah, sorry for that. So yeah, thank you so much. And if there's any point, Vida will be in touch and looking forward to having a continuous engagement over the next few days and weeks. So everyone is free to leave at this point and we'll be able to get in touch. So we have again a hand from Patricia. Maybe we can take that and finish the call.
I just wanted to help those ones who are saying they don't have Wi-Fi. There's a cheaper way of getting bundles from Safaricom, the *44#. Then you get to Nokia. That one will be better where they don't have the Wi-Fi. Just a thought.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much for sharing that life hack, Patricia. Yeah, so *44#, right? Okay. Yeah, thank you so much. Then I think we'll end at this point, and I'm looking forward to engaging. You all have a great evening. Bye-bye, everyone.